Today I'll be cooking ribs 3 different ways using the Hunsaker Rib attachment on the Weber Smoky Mountain. Now, should you remove the membrane off the ribs? Absolutely. Now, the only reason why you should probably leave the membrane on is it minimizes the risk of the ribs falling off onto the coal. But I usually like to double hook, so that's never an issue with me. Now, I'm not going to show the full prep. Just make sure that you remove the membrane off the ribs and remove any extra fat that you might see.
Now, this is an optional step, but I'm also going to be removing the sides of the ribs and squaring them off a little bit. Now, normally I would cook these right alongside the ribs, kind of as a snack, but today I'm making something a little bit extra special. I'm making some chile colorado. If you're interested in a chile colorado recipe, leave me a comment down below.
How much charcoal to put on the Weber Smoky Mountain? One thing to keep in mind that this is about a 3-hour cook, so you don't need to fill up the Weber Smoky Mountain basket to full capacity.
I'll be lighting up about 15 briquettes. Once lit, I'll lay them over the rest. This is known as the minion method.
Now, I don't use a water pan on the Weber Smoky Mountain when I'm hanging ribs because it kind of defeats the purpose. In this style of cooking, you want the rib fat to self-baste the ribs as it's cooking, and the fat will drip down to the coals, and it gives it a ton of flavor. Now let's season these ribs.
For the sweet rib, I'll be using some all-purpose rub, and I'm gonna layer in with some Heath Riles cherry rub. For the spicy ribs, I'm gonna be using a hot sauce as a binder. I'm using tapatio. And I'm keeping the rub very simple, salt, pepper, and garlic. For the garlic ginger rib, I'm gonna be using a wet rub. Start off with garlic, ginger, brown sugar. I'll add in some pepper, some sesame oil, and some soy sauce. I'll sprinkle in some red chili pepper flakes. Exact amounts will be down below in the description box.
Now I'm going to be daisy chaining these hooks, so I'm going to be using 2 per rib. The basic idea is you want to get down there to maybe the 5th or 6th bone, and then run it through maybe the 2nd or 3rd bone. And this way you got an extra layer of protection. The likelihood of your ribs falling onto the coals is very unlikely. I've always double hooked. I've never had a rib fallen when I double hook, and you should definitely do it. The other thing I'm going to point out are the hangers that come with the Hunsaker rib attachment are slightly smaller than the ones that come with the pit barrel. Personally, I like the ones that came with the pit barrel. In my opinion, they're a lot better. They're more expensive, so that's one thing to watch out for. How many ribs can you cook on this thing? A lot. The most I've done is about 8 ribs and some chicken. To be honest with you, I'm an amateur compared to the other videos that I've seen out there. I haven't reached the full capacity of this thing, but you could cook a whole lot. Now, I know I said it before, and that is not to trust the temperature on the lid of the Weber Smoky Mountain because it's off by a couple of degrees. And this is why off camera, I decided to drop in the pit probe through the vent of the Weber Smoky Mountain. This way I get an accurate reading of the temperature inside the Weber Smoky Mountain. Now let's check on the ribs. I don't spritz the ribs. I just let it go for 2.5 hours before I start checking for tenderness. The main reason is the more I open up that lid, temperatures really get out of control. So I try to limit the times that I open up the Weber Smoky Mountain. The ribs self-baste, and they come out with plenty of moisture and a lot of flavor. You may have noticed I've been using this pit barrel tool to remove the ribs with the hooks, but I will say that you don't need this tool because it's a little bit overpriced. But hey, if you're opening a lot of beer bottles, then this other side will be very, very helpful. But you don't need to invest in it. All you need is really another hook, and you could use that to remove and put your ribs back.
And this is why you don't hook on the last rib, and why you always double hook. If I didn't double hook, this rack would have fallen right on the coals. No bueno. Next, I'll check for tenderness. Now the ginger garlic rib is probably a lot more tender than the other two ribs. I could probably have cooked the other two ribs for another extra 30 minutes, but I'm gonna go ahead and rush this. Let's get our 3 sauces ready. For the spicy ribs, we're gonna go ahead and use some Blue Hog's Tenesse Red. It will go great with the spiciness. For our sweet rib, we're gonna use a mixture of Sweet Baby Ray's, some honey. We're also gonna be using the cherry rub that we use on these ribs, some hot sauce, and we mix. For the ginger garlic ribs, we're gonna be using this Asian Zing by Buffalo Wild Wings. It'll complement the flavors really well.
Now personally, I don't like to wrap the ribs when I'm hanging ribs this way, but believe me, the ribs come out with plenty of flavor and there's enough moisture in the ribs and really tender. Cooking the ribs this way introduces a ton of flavor. This is by far one of my favorite methods to cook a rib. If you've never tried it, I highly suggest you check out the Hunsaker Rib attachment. You will not be disappointed. However, if you don't have a Weber Smoky Mountain, but you have a Weber kettle, be sure to check out my barbecue rib using no attachments on the Weber kettle. I also have another video where I cooked a rib on the Santa Maria grill. Now this introduces even more flavor because I'm cooking over wood. Let me tell you, these 3 methods are unbeatable and are my favorite way to cook ribs.
Now this is our sweet rib, layered in all-purpose rub along with that cherry rub. This is a pretty standard rib, it has really good flavor, and as always, it's got that really smoky, awesome taste you get by hanging the rib. Tenderness is not as tender as I would like it, but it's still very good. Next up is our spicy rib. Remember, I used some tapatio sauce as the binder for this rib. If you've never used a hot sauce as a binder, give it a shot. Looking back at it, I probably should have used a little bit of cayenne pepper, but I'm getting a little bit of dryness. I think much like the first rack, it probably needed another 30 minutes for the fat to really render, and that's probably what I'm tasting, but it's still a very good rib. Now let's try our ginger garlic rib. It's the first time I use this type of marinade on a rib, but I'm very pleased with the results. This actually ended up being my favorite of the 3 due to the tenderness and the unique flavor, and I'm definitely going to try this again. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.